Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Initially, Zhou planned to wait for Bama to appear before killing Bama with a deadly strike card. However, after he considered the current situation, he realized Bama's preparation had exceeded his expectations. This was not as simple as forfeiting 200 years of life. Bama had practically given all his life for these puppets. If another 8-leaf puppet were to appear, there was no doubt that Bama had already given his life. Although Kong Yuan was nothing but a corpse now, his affinity with the prayer bead still existed. He seemed to be able to sense the prayer bead's location as he charged at Su Jing and the others. His huge black avatar resembled a meteor in the air. Lang Luo retreated with Su Jing and the others. They landed behind the boulder. The person who stood before them was none other than Zhou, who looked calm and indifferent since the beginning. They wondered what method the pavilion master to block the terrifying Fiend Zen attack. Regardless, they could only trust him. Everyone looked up at Kong Yuan. Zhou flipped his wizened hand. The item that materialized in his hand was not a deadly strike card. Instead, it was unnamed. Unnamed was emitting a faint blue and purple light. It was the Heavenly Writing Scroll's extraordinary power. The instant the Black Fiend Zen avatar was upon him, he activated the power of past lives. Zhou swung his sword forcefully. From the lower left corner, Unnamed drew a diagonal line to the upper right corner. Zing. It was a simple and direct move, like a mere mortal swinging his arm. However, the air seemed to freeze over. To everyone's surprise, the Black Fiend Zen avatar cracked as though it was as fragile as a sheet of paper. If the sword devil, Yu Shengrong, had witnessed this, what would his thoughts be? He only managed to cut the Fiend Zen avatar down after unleashing all his strength and techniques. And yet, his master cleaved it in two with just a casual swing of his hand. How was this even logical? When the avatar disintegrated, the cultivator would usually be heavily injured as well. Kong Yuan was already dead. When his avatar was sliced open, black power leaked out as he reeled back. However, shortly after, he lunged at Zhou again. A corpse had nothing to fear. Zhou said disapprovingly, how futile. Originating from nothing, but coming from everything. Living in samsara. I'll send you into samsara with this strike. Kong Yuan shot toward them. He attempted to tackle the frail-looking old man with his tough body. Bzzzt. The purple mist seemed to freeze in the air. Suddenly, a purple mist shot out from the forest. A sound wave rolled out into the surroundings. Restriction. The people of the Evil Sky Pavilion were shocked. They looked at the mist around them. The mist formed a huge net that cut off all their possible routes. The puppets on land did not relent in their attempts to attack them. Bama finally appeared. I'll exchange my life for a shackle from which no being will be able to escape from. Die. Kong Yuan was upon Zhou. Pavilion Master, look out. Hua Wudao wanted to rush over and activate his 6 compatible seal, but he was too late. Zhou glanced at Bama, who was hovering above the scene. He nodded in satisfaction. Finally, he shows himself. At this moment, Zhou chose to use an impeccable card. This time, the Buddha golden body did not appear. Instead, a 10-script 6 compatible seal appeared. He stood on the 8 trigrams, and the 10 scripts on his body shot out swiftly as they expanded. Heaven, earth, life, death, water, fire, being, non-being, and separation. Bam! The purple mist that initially shrouded the Evil Sky Pavilion was instantly scattered by the terrifying 10-script 6 compatible seal. Hua Wudao looked up, speechless. Was this still his 6 compatible seal? Was this the Taoist seal that he studied and created? Each script was an individual attack. Apart from the round shield, there were energy seals formed by the 10 scripts that struck at Kong Yuan precisely. The 10 scripts spun and landed 10 consecutive strikes. Boom. 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 Kong Yuan managed to hold his own when the first 3 scripts struck him. However, when the 4th to the 6th script hit him, he fell backward. When the 9th script struck, his body was blown up into pieces. By the 10th strike, his ashes had already scattered in the air. Perhaps, Zhou was lucky. Usually, the impeccable cards were more defense-oriented. Kong Yuan, who had been on collision course with the 10 scripts, finally died. If I can kill you once, I can kill you twice. A shocked expression appeared on Ba Ma's face. You're not affected by the restriction? Zhou glanced at the purple mist. He did not waste words with Ba Ma. He brought his left hand up, and a deadly strike card appeared in his palm. A miniature vortex spun in an anti-clockwise direction. I've been waiting for you. Zhou had never loathed witchcraft as much as he did today. He was filled with so much loathing that he did not even want to waste another word. Ba Ma widened his eyes. He sensed the alarming and terrifying power in Zhou's palm. He said hoarsely, in that case, let's die together. Instead of retreating, he advanced. He charged toward Zhou with the purple mist. Zhou did not fear Ba Ma. Up until now, he had not activated his critical block card. Even without using the heavenly writings powers, Ba Ma could not do anything against him. However, Ba Ma, naturally, had no way of knowing that his enemy was a terrifying individual who was armed with all kinds of trump cards. 10 seconds passed in a blink of an eye. The 10 script 6 compatible seal vanished. The deadly strike card replaced the 6 compatible seal and launched forward. The Soul Diamond Seal, the Great Blitz Treasure Seal, the Magic Gourd Seal, the Sun Moon Seal. These seals corresponded with the power, energy, harmony, healing, intuition, awareness, dimension, creation, and absoluteness. The packed scripts surrounded the Great Seal. The others held their breaths at the sight of this. Although this was the second time they saw Zhou unleashing this skill, they were still in awe and disbelief. One of the great palm seals of the Daoist sect collided with Ba Ma like a normal attack. Boom. 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 Similar to Kong Yuan, Ba Ma resisted obstinately. When the 8th palm seal struck his body, something different happened. The mist around him scattered. His face was illuminated by the radiance of the 9 cuts hand seal. At this moment, everyone saw Ba Ma's appearance. From his forehead to his chin, every inch of his face was covered in cuts. The edges of his eyes had been cut as well. Blood was trickling out of his 7 orifices. At this moment, it felt as though time itself had stopped. Ding. Killed a target. Reward, 2,000 merit points. When he heard this notification, Zhou knew that Ba Ma was dead. However, Ba Ma had cultivated his own body to continue attacking even after his death, similar to his puppets. Zhou thought about using the Great Seal of Fearlessness to grind Ba Ma into dust just to tie up loose ends. When the 9th palm seal struck his heart, Ba Ma's eyes were filled with incredulity. However, he was no longer breathing. A blood-cultivated body. Lang Luo reminded Zhou. Zhou shook his head. He stepped forward and said confidently, if I can slice you once, I can slice you again. Who was an expert? Zhou gave the others an earnest demonstration of what it meant to be an expert. Lang Luo and Pan Litian had trouble keeping Kong Yuan at bay. However, Kong Yuan seemed so defenseless before Zhou. They suddenly remembered a question in their minds. Everyone had been talking about how the Patriarch of the Evil Sky Pavilion's great limit was at hand. Every year, they guessed and they probed, but they were never right. Every time, they would find an excuse to attack. The excuse was the truth that everyone believed in, the 1,000-year limit. Under ordinary circumstances, a cultivator's cultivation base would deteriorate rapidly in the final 100 years of their lives. How did the pavilion master manage to maintain his cultivation base? There was another possibility: the Evil Sky Pavilion's Patriarch had truly found a way to attain the 9-leaf stage. If they had not seen this with their own eyes, they would never believe that the evil Sky Pavilion's master was capable of such a terrifying display of power. The three men of the Old Age Pavilion thought of the same phrase at the same time. The villains had returned to his peak. Perhaps, at the pavilion master's level, his control over his powers had returned to his natural state. There was no grand execution or flashy display of energy bursts. Just like before, when Manhwa charged toward Zhou, he drew unnamed across Manhwa's body. Just like what he told Yu Shangrong, if he wanted to kill his opponent, all he had to do was to swing his sword with force alone. Unnamed's sharpness exceeded the understanding of the people gathered present on the scene. Crack. A sound that resembled bamboo plants being hacked off rang in the air. It was crisp and satisfying. The satisfaction they felt could hardly be put into words. The people of the evil Sky Pavilion felt, for the first time, just how wonderful this cracking sound was. It was so wonderful that the weights immediately lifted from their shoulders. The witchcraft genius of Lulan, Manhwa, had died. The surroundings of the evil Sky Pavilion fell silent. Zhou looked at the blood-cultivated body on the boulder and felt no sympathy. Witchcraft had light and dark sides. Unfortunately, Manhwa chose the path of darkness. Your amazing might knows no bounds, master. My horizons have been widened. Zhu Honggong was the first to break the silence. The others looked at Zhu Honggong. Can't help it, can't help it. Zhu Honggong scratched his head. When he did that, he cried out in pain. The chiseled surface of the boxing gloves proved to be hazardous. This was not the time for flattery. After all, they could still see the puppets moving forward, albeit at a slow pace. Without the spellcaster controlling them, the puppets surrounded them like robots. There were too many of them. They had shocking defenses as well. If they were to kill the puppets one by one, who knew how long it would take? Zhou looked at the purple mist in the sky and the avatar under him. He stroked his beard and said, "Wizard. Roar." Wizard, standing on auspicious clouds and bathed in auspicious chi, flew above the purple mist. The scene that unfolded during the battle with the 10 shamans was reenacted. Hua Wudao widened his eyes. He looked at Wizard scattering its auspicious chi. The purple mist was being pushed down by the auspicious chi until it was on the ground. Without the support from the purple mist, the puppets fell to the ground. The process took quite a while. When the purple mist was completely gone, and all of the puppets had dropped to the ground, Wizard let out a long howl. As though it knew it had completed its mission, it flew back and vanished into the darkness. Zhou noticed that Wizard's status was shown as resting on the dashboard. He guessed that it would last 7 days again. The others looked in the direction where Wizard vanished. They were slightly stunned. They rubbed their eyes. Isn't this too great of a prank? Why wasn't this done sooner? Naturally, Zhou had his own intentions. If he unleashed Wizard, Manhwa would most likely turn tail and run. Taking care of Manhwa before these puppets was the best course of action. As he looked at the puppets on the ground, he shook his head. He had lost a lot in this battle. There were no rewards of merit points, and he brought much trouble upon himself. That was not all. The purple mist had absorbed half of the plants' lifespans in the area. Many trees were now dried and withered. Su Jing took a few steps forward and slowly descended to the ground. He looked at the corpses strewn on the ground and sighed. He straightened his palm and said, "Amitba. Old monk, what's there to be amitabbing about?" Zhu Honggong was creeped out by the bodies. They were controlled by Manhwa and had no quarrels with me while they were still of this world. All of this is that grand shaman's mistake. Zhu Honggong nodded, "I think you have a point." Su Jing turned around in midair, faced Zhou, and said, "Benefactor Ji, virtue lies in all living things. Everything comes in a circle in its own time. I'm willing to set up an altar at the foot of the mountain to help these souls find peace. Please grant your permission, benefactor." Zhou surveyed the surroundings. The dead deserved respect. In the end, he replied, "All right. Thank you, benefactor." Su Jing straightened up and said in a clear voice, "On behalf of the deceased, I thank all the benefactors here. Old monk, you're something else. I'll leave them to you, then. It is but my duty." Mingxirin looked at Su Jing and said, "You're the first monk whom I can actually tolerate." Lu Zhou returned to the Evil Sky Pavilion. "Safe journey, Pavilion Master." "Safe journey, Master." When Lu Zhou was finally out of sight, the others sighed with relief. "Old Pan, are you all right?" Lang Luo noticed Pan Litian's exhausted state. "I won't die from this." Pan Litian gripped his wine gourd tightly. He coughed twice before he rose to his feet. Pan Zhong flew down to support Pan Litian. He said, "Don't push yourself too hard when your cultivation base isn't restored yet." Pan Litian was not angered by this. He laughed. "However, in many circumstances, you can only know if you're capable of surviving an ordeal when you push yourself to the limit. Don't try to fill my head with wild arguments. I'll help you get back." The other disciples looked on as Pan Litian and Pan Zhong flew back to the Evil Sky Pavilion. At this moment, Hua Yuexing descended from above the sky of Evil Sky Pavilion. She recalled her falling moon bow and shook her head. She had much work to do. Throughout that battle, she had only killed a limited number of puppets. Hua Wudao walked up to her and said, "Don't give up. Those were the Pavilion Master's direct disciples. They can't be compared to the conventional standard of talent." Oh. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou returned to the Eastern Pavilion. The two swings of his sword did not seem to contain great power, but it did deplete 2/3 of his extraordinary power. After all, the power was capable of besting an 8-leaf opponent. Moreover, this was on top of wielding Unnamed. He flipped his palm. Unnamed hovered above his hand. The Black Rune? Lu Zhou remembered the scene in the Mausoleum of Swords. Unnamed had absorbed all of the demon sword's black runes and converted them to its own energy. Was it sharpened because of this? With a thought, Unnamed turned into a hammer. It was not covered in runes when it took the shape of other weapons. He put Unnamed away. Lu Zhou cleared his mind of distracting thoughts. He sat with his legs crossed and entered his heavenly writings meditation state. This time, he used a deadly strike card and an impeccable card. The number of item cards he had was decreasing. Judging by the current prices, he would run out of cards sooner or later. All he could rely on was the extraordinary power. He had to think of a way to improve his cultivation base. Early the next morning, Lu Zhou had just opened his eyes when a voice reached him from the other side of the door. "Master, Su Jing requests an audience." "All right." Lu Zhou stood up and gauged his extraordinary power. It had merely increased a little after a night's worth of meditation. He was slightly worried about the pace of his meditation. Could this have something to do with the fourth open heavenly writing scroll? Would the pace improve with every opened scroll? However, he did not dwell upon this. Instead, he left the Eastern Pavilion. He stood outside the Great Hall and saw a lively scene. A crowd was gathered between the two majestic stone pillars outside the Great Hall. They wore monks' robes. Golden Court Mountain was not a small mountain. There were several thousand square meters before the Great Hall. However, it was completely occupied by the monks. What is this about? The Great Hall faced the east, so the morning sun shone on the Evil Sky Pavilion. Lu Zhou walked slowly toward them. Su Jing emerged from the crowd, straightened a palm, and said, "Amitba."